No. Minister of State for Health for Nigeria, Senator Olorunnimbe Mamora. He'll be talking to us about the response and efforts of the government with regard to the COVID pandemic, but more importantly, with a focus on natural medicines and natural remedies for this pandemic, especially those that come from Africa. I have accepted his request, and so we're waiting for him to come on any moment now. But don't forget that 30 minutes into it's a 45 minutes conversation. 30 minutes into the conversation, I will be taking questions from the audience. So while we are talking, please start thinking about your questions so that I can look through them and select some questions to ask the minister as soon as he joins us. It's Call of Duty, a weekly series with Enough is Enough Nigeria. And I have been hosting a slew of guests. I think the minister's internet has disappeared. His internet is really frustrating him. I have a joke there to crack at the expense of the federal government, but I won't crack it. I won't crack it. But his connection just went off again. So I'll wait for him to sign in again, and then I'll accept his request again, and then he'll join us. We're all learning how this Instagram live thing works. So if it was on TV, we would have gone on a commercial break, and then would have come back after the commercial break, and then would have screamed at ourselves for the disappearance of our guest. But now that we're on Instagram live, I'm not sure what the protocol is exactly. Who should I be mad at? So while we're waiting for the minister, if there's anybody who wants to join me in the conversation about the issues, while we're waiting for him to log back on, please wave as usual, or send the message and I'll respond to you. If someone wants to join us to talk about, if there's a medical doctor watching, if there is a public health practitioner watching, if there's a member of the government, who knows, watching this conversation now, you'd like to start talking with me while we wait for the Minister of Health. Okay, great. We have Ayo. Ayo, yes. Let's do it. Great. Go live with Ayo. Oh, I thought Ayo said yes. Okay. I'm looking for someone to join us. While we're waiting for the minister to log back in. Okay. Oh, so we have somebody. Okay, no. So we have somebody who's accepted. But at the same time, the minister just joined. So I will be accepting the minister's request and we'll be starting the conversation. For those just joining us, the guest is the Minister of State for Health for Nigeria.
You can't see me?
Yes, now we can see you, sir. Well, now we can hear you, but we can't.
I'm there. You made your request, which I've responded to. Yes.
You are live. You are now live, sir.
Huh?
You are now live. We can see you on the screen now. We can hear you. We can hear you on the screen now, sir.
Yes, I have. But he's saying he's not seeing me.
I can hear you now, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Oh, okay. Yes, but I can hear him.
Okay, I can hear you, but I can't see you. So I think it's the positioning of the iPad.
Okay.
But we can hear. I can hear you very clearly. So the camera is facing the lights on the roof, I think, or somewhere. Great. We can see you. We can see you as you're adjusting it. We can see you. We can see the tip of your glasses now. We can see your hands now. Fantastic. We can now see you, sir. Fantastic. It's now perfect. Great. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, sorry for the hitches that...
We understand. We are all getting used to this as a civilization. Used to this in this time of...
as they say, that necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes, yes, it absolutely is. Thank you for joining us. This must be an incredibly busy time for your ministry, an
It is.
incredibly busy time. So we appreciate that you've taken out the time to engage with the public.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to have this engagement.
Right. First question, sir, before we go into the main topic, which is natural medicines. What has been the biggest challenge you would say that you have faced in coordinating the national response to the COVID pandemic? And how have you managed to solve that problem, whatever that problem is? What has been the number one obstacle that you have faced, that the ministry has faced, that the government has faced, and how have you managed to overcome whatever that obstacle is?
Well, I think the challenges are there are many, no doubt about that. There are many. But then, if you ask me, as you have done, the biggest, it's the weak health systems and infrastructure. And that is something that has been accumulating, as it were. So you're talking of accumulated years of decay in health systems and infrastructure. So that's the biggest challenge.
That's the biggest challenge. How are we as a people, how are we as a government, how are we navigating that challenge at this time? What are we doing? How are you managing to solve that problem in the interim, considering the global, supply chain challenges that the world is facing?
Yeah. Yes, as you rightly said, you see, it's not something that you could just get over easily, because we're talking of years of accumulated decay. But because of the situation we find ourselves right now in terms of the global health situation, that is the pandemic, that the entire world, the entire humanity is facing at this point in time, it now becomes inevitable for us to do the best in the circumstance, make use of the facilities available, and try to expand on these facilities in terms of infrastructure on ground, and of course in terms of the what you call the health, the human resources for health, because you have to do capacity building, and whatever infrastructure you have on ground, you need to expand them to accommodate the needs of the moment. And that's what we are trying to do. And thankfully too, the support we've got, not just from the federal government itself, but from the donor agencies and individuals and groups, companies that have come to help what I would call humanity at this point in time.
Right. Okay. Let's go right into the topic. The buzz across Africa is Senegal with its $1 per kit solution, and Madagascar with what many are calling the Madagascar medicines. Some people will wonder, with the much talked about human resource that Nigeria has, the depth of academic knowledge that it has, and the resources at its disposal, and just the sheer size of the population. Why would you think that we are not at the front of this conversation about natural medicine? Why aren't we the country that is leading the rest of the continent in developing a vaccine, in developing a vaccine, in developing a testing kit, in developing some sort of response to this pandemic at this time? Why is it smaller countries like Madagascar or Senegal? Some people may be wondering.
Well, let me remind you that time there was in the late 50s and early 60s that Nigeria was producing vaccines. That's from the Nigeria Institute of Medical Research in Yaba.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
suddenly, or maybe I should say gradually along the line, we went into what I call the journey of decline. And this decline is across board. When I say it's across board, that it's not just the health sector, but part of the health sector issue. Then you recall again that time there was in this same country that UCH was the center where the and some other countries were being treated. They were coming in here to obtain medical treatment. So those were the good old days, if you like. So somehow, somewhere along the line, we are not even producing vaccines now because the infrastructures that made all this possible then, they have become dilapidated, they have become obsolete, and even these researchers, some of them are still around, but the kind of encouragement, the kind of conducive atmosphere needed to make them excel are no longer there. So these are some of the challenges. So for us to go back to the good old days, we now need to put our hands together and reverse some of these things that had happened over time that brought us to where we are today. So these are the things, but definitely it cannot be in one fell swoop. It will definitely take time in terms of course, what has compounded the whole problem, it's even the healthcare financing. Nigeria has one of the highest out-of-pocket expenditure in terms of health. So we need to gradually go back to the basics, start fixing infrastructures, start creating conducive environment for the researchers to start giving grants, because research anywhere in the world requires a lot of grants, requires a lot of money to put these things in place, the infrastructure in terms of equipment, in terms of facilities to make these things work. You need them to be in place. So it's not a question of just sudden turnaround. No. So we have to start doing all this gradually. So having said that, yes, don't forget the coronavirus issue, which has now been named COVID-19. It's something that took the entire world unawares, if you like. It came in suddenly and it came by storm, and that's why you see even the countries hitherto felt it should be well developed. They are also having issues coping with the COVID-19 problem. Patients are dying more and more. The numbers are increasing in terms of those testing positive and all that. So that's why it's a kind of all of government and all of society approach. And what you hear every time is solidarity, cooperation, coordination, and all that. Partnership. This is what we are faced with now. It's not as if we are also, we are folding our arms and not attempting to, as we speak now. I will tell you, the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, they have been able to, through the research efforts, of course, collaboration from some other centers in Nigeria, they were able to do what we call the genomic sequence to determine that the kind of virus we are having, the coronavirus that we're having, is it the same as the one that emerged in Wuhan, in China? Because it's important, because one of the things that could happen is viruses, they tend to have that ability to transform, so that you are dealing with a particular strain, before you know it, it has transformed into another strain. But we have been able to establish probably the first African country to establish that genetic sequence. That is to say that what we are having here is exactly the same one in Wuhan, in China. We did that, but probably because we didn't make too much noise about it. From our research center in Yaba, that is Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. They did that, and we know, visited the place to really establish it. So gradually, in essence, these things will, as we are beginning to appreciate the need to go back to the basics, create conducive environment, fund the research work, and then get the commitment of all those concerned, we will gradually get back to where we should be.
Right. Is there a sense that, I mean, it's good to hear that, but is there a sense that the Nigerian response to, the Nigerian government response to the COVID virus lacks a certain agility? Some people have said, while it's completely understandable that you reach out to professors at Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, you reach out to the credentialed experts who have had years of responding to a pandemic, or who have had, they've been here for cholera, they've been here for SARS, they've been here for Ebola, they've been here with the HIV/AIDS pandemic, so they have a lot of experience. Is there a sense that if we look below the line and begin to look for non-conventional, non-traditional, unexpected places, younger people who are maybe not professors, but who might be thinking? So the Senegal case with the kits came from underground, grassroots, so to speak, experimentation, innovation. It wasn't something that came from the top to the bottom, something that came from the bottom to the top. It came from government understanding and appreciating the non-traditional, unexpected zones where innovation was coming from. Is there a sense that the Nigerian government is not being agile enough to look at these unexpected spaces for possible solutions that it may not find at the top of the chain, with the experts, with the professors, with the research institutes?
Well, we are open, I must say. And one of the beauties of science is the ability to keep an open mind and continue to, you must have a desire to query, to ask questions, to seek solutions. That's the beauty, or it's part of the beauties of science. So in the circumstance, we cannot, and it will not even be in our own interest to restrict ourselves to what is known. In fact, the whole of science is to continue to seek knowledge wherever you can get it. So I don't really have that sense, really. I must refer, I don't really have that sense. We are open. And again, it's a function of how much collaboration you even getting. I can tell you that, yes, the kit in Senegal, it's one that there was some kind of collaboration with a company in the UK, that collaborated with, but fine. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's still credited to Senegal. So it's okay. Again, if you talk about the Madagascar thing, the plant from which the extract was made, it's Artemisia. Artemisia is, I don't know whether it's also found in Madagascar, but it's not indigenous to Nigeria. Artemisia is indigenous to China. But I do know that some years back, there was an attempt to, in fact, it was even cultivated here in Nigeria. And how much we have made of it, it's another thing. I can also tell you that we've had so many claims by people below, quote and unquote, using your own language, that is may not necessarily be known. But then they have made claims. But you see, in scientific research or in medical research, particularly when you're looking for a solution, you don't just make a claim. The claim has to be subjected to due process, you know, in terms of, first, you want to know that this thing is even safe for human consumption. That's the first thing. NAFDAC is there. NAFDAC, Food and Drugs. And the main thing NAFDAC does is to establish the safety in terms of consumption. That's it. That's the only thing. Then it has to go through some other processes before you now come to clinical trial, because you are testing a new remedy on human beings. The standard protocol is to even test it on animals, or you test what we call in vitro, that is outside of the body, before you go to in vivo, which is within the body. Now, and you want to play safe, that's why usually you do animal trials. You know, maybe you infect an animal with a virus or with the bacteria, and then you apply your remedy and see what happens. So that's another phase again. It is when you now introduce it into the human body, then you now talk of the clinical trial. And even that, you need to get volunteers, because you cannot, a remedy that has not been, you know, acclaimed internationally, you can't just start applying it to a human body without the consent. There has to be consent. That means you must have volunteers who will make the consent available and even sign on to say, so, you know, if by any unfortunate circumstance, you know, it goes other way, where they are volunteers, you know. So you have to do all that. Thereafter, you monitor what the outcome is. That is, and the outcome may not necessarily be in terms of killing the virus or the pathogen. No, it may just be outcome in terms of, well, do you have remission of symptoms? Maybe we talk of cough, you talk of fever. After taking this medication or remedy, do you have remission? Do you have, you know, symptoms? Not necessarily killing the virus, but do you have the symptoms being reduced? Or in terms of the length of stay in hospital, is it reduced? These are things you look out for. Then, after you have done all that, you will then follow up to see whether there are side effects. There may be side effects, because if every drug has potential side effects, but then you now assess, are the side effects such as to say, no, you won't use the drugs again? No, the side effects will be there, but if the therapeutic advantages outweigh the side effects, you will still go ahead and use the drugs. There are drugs that we take, even OTC, off-the-counter drugs that we take, that also have side effects. But if the side effects are not such as to overwhelm you, if the therapeutic advantages they outweigh the side effects, you will still, you know, go ahead and take the drug. So these are and it's not an easy process. It takes time, it takes a while, and then of course it takes all you know, commitment.
So are we engaged in any way in that kind of process now? Is that something you can tell us, sir?
Yes, I can tell you where.
Are we in any way? Right.
In fact,
okay. Is there any detail that can be shared?
Well,
no, go ahead, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, it will be rather premature for me to share the details with you at this point in time. But I can tell you that, particularly, you know, herbal products, herbal remedies, we are collating them. In fact, we have collated them right now. And what we intend to do at the level of the ministry, particularly under my own purview as Minister of State, is to have this kind of engagement, a kind of teleconferencing in like this, because I would have, but for the situation in the of them together, we have kind of sifted the genin from, from not to genin in terms of the processes, So we have got a list now that we intend to interact with in the presence of the DG NAFDAC, in the presence of the director, traditional, alternative and complementary medicine department, and we have a director in charge of that department in the ministry, and of course in the presence of IMA, that is Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, Nigeria, the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development. So we all sit, and then we have conferencing where all these people that have come up with one form of remedy, they will be made to understand the due process. They can have a better understanding of what needs to be done and how best to go about it. Then that is the baseline, and that's the least we can do to really get people started. So we cannot, and it will not be proper to just say that because we have made a claim, then we will just start applying that. No, it doesn't work that way.
All right, sir. 2 questions. I want to thank you for that. I want to ask the audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the screen so that I can select and ask the minister. But one question, somebody put a comment here, sir, and said, Mr. President has reportedly received the Madagascar tonic. Is that true, sir? And what exactly is the status of that reception? What has he received? What does that say to us? What should we be making of that?
Yeah. Well, you recall that
hello?
Prior to hello?
Yes. Did you hear my question, sir?
Yes,
my question, sir.
I did. I had your question.
Right.
Hello? I had your question.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, all right. Now, yes, you recall that as soon, or shortly after that COVID organic thing was made public, there was a meeting of heads of states under the aegis of African Union.
Yes.
And it was, I think, at that meeting that a decision was taken to send consignment of this COVID organic to African heads of states. And you will also recall that at the meeting of ECOWAS heads of state, our own president, President Muhammadu Buhari, was chosen as the champion of the COVID-19 response activities, as is for ECOWAS. So in that capacity, he will have no choice than to be seen. Of course, out of solidarity and out of being supporting what is our own. I think it was on that basis that the consignment that was it was even sent to where we got these things, our own consignment. But having got this consignment, of course, it's not free. But don't ask me how much, because it's not free. Now, having got this consignment, and Mr. President has made it clear again that it still has to be subjected to due process in our country. So, and that is the first step. And it's only when that is done that other details about.
Right. Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask another question, but then somebody asked the question to say, first, this is mid-May, and we are still talking about calling people together when we thought that testing should be going on. Would you be able to answer that question? Somebody is saying, look, this is mid-May. By now, we expected the consultations to have ended. I think you've answered that by saying, yes, you can reveal more information, but there's elaborate testing being going on. I want to know if there's something you'd like to add to that, or you believe that fully answers the question?
Okay. Well, if you don't test, you don't know who is positive or who is negative. So testing is not only imperative, it is inevitable to determine who is positive. Once you know that somebody is positive, then you try and isolate that person, either in the hospital or in the isolation centers, or even at home.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Sorry to interrupt, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I think he's talking about testing. I think that's why I mentioned that you may have answered that before.
Okay.
I think he's talking about testing for the possible drugs. I think that's what he's talking about, and he's saying he believes that because it's a crisis, we should have moved to testing now. I think that's what he's talking about.
Oh, okay, but well, it's a process. It's a process. It's a lot of the things, at least from the herbal aspect and all of that, people just go on there and make claims without. You will recall that even the DG NAFDA, I think sometime last week or early, that as at that time that she was talking, that nobody has even submitted anything to her office. Nobody. She made that claim, if you remember. Yes. And that is the starting point. That's the starting point. That is, even if you make a claim, because everything, every drug, every food item is supposed to have NAFDAC number. And I told you that NAFDAC number is to just say that this thing is fit for human consumption. It hasn't got anything to do with efficacy. Efficacy is determined following clinical trial. A drug or a remedy is efficacious without, undergoing clinical trial on established patients. That is, patients that have been confirmed to be COVID-19 positive. Those are the patients that you will not try the drug on, and that would be the clinical trial. And when you are doing that, you must have a control group. That is a group that is not, that particular remedy is not being applied on them, so that you then be able to make comparisons. Yes. But she did say.
Okay, so essentially, it's what? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, she did say that.
No, please go ahead. She did say
nobody has submitted any remedy to her.
Yes. So there has to be a separation between claims that are being made in the media and claims that are being actually followed through in order to be subjected to the rigor of the scientific process. That's essentially what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly.
So it's one thing for a person to go on the media and say to a newspaper, I have a cure. But before a government can apply that cure widely, it must be submitted to a test. And I assume that's also why globally we are there's the average expected time for a vaccine is between 6 to 12 months to 2 years, because there's a scientific process that must be followed when we are dealing with human lives.
Exactly. I'm sure you won't forget.
Okay, I do get that.
The Abalaka episode.
Yes. I do remember that. I do remember that. I remember growing up and hearing people constantly claiming they had cure for the HIV/AIDS virus and never passing the tests, peer reviews and human testing. Now, somebody asked the question. We have 6 minutes more. Somebody has asked a question about a 400-bed hospital that has reportedly been fully equipped and furnished for over 5 years, but not put to use. I apologize. The person says Reliance Hospital. Olalere Babashola, I apologize. I'm not familiar with that hospital. So if you can quickly share more detail about that.
Yes.
I'm asking him to share more detail. Yes, please share more detail about that so that I can ask the question to the minister. But while we are waiting for Babashola to resend that question with more detail, something you mentioned, sir, and I think it would be maybe slightly irresponsible of me not to push on that. You mentioned that the biggest problem we are facing is the collapse, essentially, of our health networks, a health system accumulated over years. However, and that is true. Nobody can deny that these problems preceded this government. these are problems of systemic decay, and systemic decay is often accumulated. However, it can be credibly said that this particular government has had 5 years to at least begin to revert. Okay, the argument can be credibly made that this government has had 5 years. It has 4 years. It has had an election. It has been re-elected for a second term, and had one more year, cumulatively 5 years, to have begun to halt and considerably reverse this trend of decay. And certain people would say that that has not done, that we've not seen a marked improvement in the state of our healthcare to have already done for a pandemic like this. What would be your response to that?
Well, yes, if you say that the pace at which things are being done may not have been in tandem, maybe, but to say that we should have had at least enough on ground as to be able to manage the pandemic, that will not be right. Because I did say earlier on that even countries that hitherto you will say health systems, whether in Europe, in America, they are crumbling. Their health system is crumbling under the weight of COVID-19. So not to now talk of a country with weak health system. So yes, on one hand, the expectations might not have been met in terms of putting things on ground aggressively, but it is not, and it cannot be that the expectation is such that will make us be ready for COVID-19 pandemic. No nation is ready. You can see what is happening in terms of the number of deaths from COVID-19 in other climes, and we are not as bad as that. Well, for one reason or another, and for a bit of what we have also been able to do. But the effort is still ongoing. It's a work in process. I mean, in progress.
Right. Okay, thank you, sir. We've run out of time, but I'm going to ask one last question. Before that, the gentleman who made the suggestion about, who raised the point about the 400-bed hospital, has promised to route the information through Yemi Adamolekun, who is the ED of EIE. And so I believe that information will be forwarded to your offices.
Please,
finally,
please,
at this point, right, fantastic. Right now, there's a state of uncertainty, sir. We do not know. Everybody seems to think that this the partial lockdown lift down is going to lead to an increase in the curve, so to speak. People don't know how long this uncertain and flux state of affairs will continue. In the absence of any detail about the vaccine or any other interim measures for healthcare, there is just this sense of uncertainty. What clarity, what certainty can you give Nigerians at this time as to where all of this is going in the next few days and weeks?
Well, it's extremely difficult to give certainty in the face of challenges that we have on ground. And when I say challenges on ground, you can see, with all due respect to our people, I have not really seen, personally, I have not really seen that level of compliance with the directives and directories of government, whether in terms of social and physical distancing, whether in terms of limiting gathering, whether in terms of even use of face masks, whether in terms of observing even the basic personal hygiene and all that. I have not seen that. And that in itself is a big problem. And of course, in spite of all this that we are saying, some people are still living in denial. They are saying that COVID-19 is hoax, is not real. They're saying all sorts of things. You see these things on the social media. There are people who just don't believe that this thing is real. And that in itself is a source of big concern. We have not seen the level of cooperation that we expect from people. We have not seen that acceptance of the reality on ground and the willingness of people to collaborate for all of us to come to terms with this reality. These are measures, and under that circumstance, it will be difficult. I must say, it will be difficult for me to give a pronouncement that that will not be in tandem with these realities. So this is where the issue is. This is where the issue is, because some still live in denial, and the cooperation we expect from the general populace is not really there.
Right. Okay, I wish I had more time, because I had a follow-up question to that about enforcement, the enforcement responsibility of government. But where should citizens go online? Because this is an online platform, even though it's going on TV. Where should citizens go if they want to get up-to-date information that's verified and accurate from the government, on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, you see the states, they have their official lines to call. In the various states, they have their official lines. The NCDC has its own website, which is always advertised. They also have their helplines as well. The helplines of even the other agencies of government, whether it is Port Health Services, whether it is the Ministry of Health itself, all these official lines, you have them being official lines of, even the ministry, the Ministry of Information itself, has all these helplines, all these official portals, so to speak, where people can get information that will be useful to them when and if the need arises.
Right. Great. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. On behalf of Enough is Enough Nigeria, I appreciate you finding the time to answer questions directly from the public. And I pray that we hope that Nigerians come out of this with as minimal loss of lives as we possibly can. Thank you for joining us.
Well, sorry, you didn't introduce yourself to me, or maybe when we were having some hitches at the
right. Right. My name is Chude, Jideonwo. I'm a TV host. You're familiar with my partner, Debola Williams.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
And I'm a co-founder of Enough is Enough Nigeria. I'm one of the co-founders of Enough is Enough Nigeria.
I remember. All I know is that it's a very familiar face that I saw.
Yes.
Well, sometimes, not even many times ago, but I just didn't remember the name. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for the role you are playing. We appreciate it, and we don't underrate or take for granted this role. It's important, and we need this collaboration. We need this cooperation so that the people out there, the civil society, everybody is important. And like I said earlier on, this is what is called all of government and all of society. Everybody has a role to play. No one will be able to do it alone. And that's why we need to have this collaboration and partnership so that we can continue to even information. They say the knowledge is power. Knowledge comes through information. So it's important to get this information across to people, and then we together we can win. We can defeat COVID-19. So we appreciate this, and I want to thank you for also finding time to speak with me on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a great day, and thank you everybody for joining us.
Wherever she is. I thank Yemi because
Yes.
she called out to me and wanted this. Thank you to everyone that has been part of this.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone. Thank you. Stay with EIE. From next week, there will be a new series. Join us. Thank you, sir. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you.